everybody. Welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justin.
This is Derek.
How you doing, man?
Not doing too bad. I am still kind of grieving my hockey team's loss from Saturday. We made the national championship game. We're up 1-0 going into the third period. Had like a bad 3-4 minutes, kind of got punched in the mouth and didn't know how to respond, and ended up losing the game 5-1.
So it was Denver, right? They played against Denver. So what did Denver do in the last three or 5 minutes that they just got punched in the mouth and couldn't recover?
Well, through the first two periods, we had held them to 8 shots on goal. The nation's number one offense to 8 shots on goal. I don't remember how many we had, but I just had a feeling one goal wasn't going to be enough. And we had some chances. We took a couple penalties, and we ended up getting some scoring chances while we were shorthanded. Couldn't capitalize. And then they came out for the third period, and they scored a goal within like the first 5 minutes of the period to tie it. And then like within a minute or two of that, they scored another goal, and that one got waved off. And we just kind of got rattled after that, and they eventually scored another goal that counted and another goal that counted. And then they got a couple empty netters to put the game out of reach. But, it was still a good season, and it was a lot of fun. But, man, I wanted it bad. Just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, but, as the saying goes, there's always next year. But
we're used to saying that in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 100% on that one. But didn't they lost to the Gophers last time though, right?
Nope. So we beat the Gophers 2 years in a row. And both years it was just a thrashing, which was nice to see. But, second place never feels that good. Those guys are all competitors and they want to win. And even though it's a huge accomplishment to get to the national championship game, to, have a lead through 2/3 of the game and then lose it basically in a matter of a few minutes. It hurts for the fans, but it's going to sting for those guys even more.
Well, right. Because you got so close to the end just to drop the ball or, whatever term you want to throw at that.
And we had never been there. I don't know what the stat is, but I'm sure there's a stat on teams making, their first national championship game. And I would venture to guess that most teams don't win with their first crack at it. So some do, I'm sure, but I would guess the majority don't.
Right. I mean, has Denver won it before?
This was their 9th. So they are tied with the University of Michigan for the most championships at 9.
So are they kind of like the Patriots of football?
No. I mean, they've winning 9 championships is a lot, but Michigan they've held the lead on national championships since like 1950. And this is the first time since like 1950 that anybody's had the same amount as them.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's a long streak.
But a lot of those, not all of them, Michigan's last national championship was, I think, 1998. That put them at 9. But a good majority of their championships came in like the 30s, 40s, 50s when there was not very many college hockey teams.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you ever wonder about like if rules nowadays were applied to games back then, how many different records or outcomes would there be?
Yeah, I've never really thought about that. The only thing I think about now is, the players are just so much better now than what they used to be. The equipment's so much different. The game is a billion times faster. It's just, you could pit a team, if you could pit 2 teams in history against each other, a team from today would kill a team from the 50s.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's in any sport, not just hockey.
Right. Because improvements. Just the fact that not maybe necessarily with skating, but I'm sure it applies to skating. But running, so many people are diagnosing the biomechanics of the human body to make one just that much better than before. So
Yeah, and I mean the equipment's so much different. I mean, like hockey sticks used to be made out of wood. Like I played with a wood hockey stick growing up, and now I mean they're light as hell. I mean they probably don't. I I don't know how much they weigh, but I would it's probably like 2 pounds if that. Compared to a hockey stick from the 50s made out of a tree branch was probably I don't know 6, 7, 8 pounds or something. I mean it makes a difference.
gotcha. I guess if you had to tie in the characters from our book, which ones would you guess would play hockey, if any?
I
Or
don't
who
know if
could you
any of
see? I
maybe
mean,
maybe Gano's because he's kind of young, so maybe Gano's.
maybe knows. You don't want to see the name Whiskey Dick on the back of a jersey?
Yeah, it'd be number 69, I'm sure.
Oh, gross. Okay, all right. Moving on. So we're covering chapter 6 from Stephen Erickson's Gardens of the Moon. This is again meant to be a podcast based upon our initial thoughts as we've read the chapter. Derek and I have not read any of his works. This is our first time being introduced to the Malazan Books of the Fallen. So our podcast is, yeah, I think, unique in a way where we get to provide a perspective that is probably 100% wrong, but it's the initial impression of his writing, the characters, the story, that we really want to kind of give a sense of in this podcast.
Yeah. So along with that, you don't have to worry about running across any spoilers, um, because, like you said, I mean it's our first time through. So if you've listened to previous episodes and have not read the book but plan to, I guess there's spoilers then. But up until where we're at now, no spoilers. So on that note, also, if you'd like to interact with us, we would love that. But uh, please don't spoil anything for us either.
Unless it's, I mean, absolutely 100% no spoilers, but in some feedback I've been getting on Reddit from the user Kashmora, who I appreciate so much for all of your thoughts and your feedback. Um, Please correct us if we're saying something wrong, or maybe could implement something better. Like one thing that was brought up among many other things that, again, were very spoiler friendly, is I was saying Krupa, but being a jerk and saying it in a German accent, apparently it is Krupp. So I'll probably keep saying it like Krupa in a German accent, but just one of the things that was brought up. So just appreciate that. Thank you very much, Kashmura.
Absolutely, yeah, it's cool to. I like that when you send me the screenshots of the feedback you're getting.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to know that people are listening, I guess, instead of just assuming.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it is. It feels good to know that somebody out there is listening to it, and it's cool that it's it reaches around the globe. Really.
Another piece of feedback was that apparently this the thing that we do with I guess, the adult humor in the podcast isn't something that is done with other podcasts with the Books of the Fallen. So I guess that's another thing that gives us a little bit of an edge if that's what you're into. So I super appreciate that feedback as well.
I mean, let's face it, we're just a couple of immature guys, so you're gonna get that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we've said dick at least 3 times already, and we're maybe 10 minutes into this episode.
Yeah, I mean, We don't have a target, to hit, but I mean, we could.
We just want to be entertaining, right? Like,
We're
read
having
through the
fun.
books.
We want to be fun to listen to. Yeah, definitely.
I guess with that being said, do you wanna take her away on chapter 6 here?
Yeah, I am ready. We can get going here. So, the first section here of what did we say? Chapter 6. This is episode 7, but chapter 6 because the prologue.
Correct. Yep.
Yes. So, enter Crone, a giant great raven flying up the outside of Moonspawn. She made her way to her lord, Anamander Rake. Moonspawn was traveling over the dwelling plain towards Lake Azure, Darujistan in the distance. Crone focused on a single estate in Darujistan. She could sense magic, a trait that grew stronger the older great ravens got. Focusing on this building, Crone descended from the air to the building. So a pretty short introduction here to this chapter, but I thought it was pretty cool. We got this giant raven, and I don't remember how big they said they were in the previous chapter, but we know that they are quite large. And they have some. I guess I didn't cover this in my short recap here, but they have some telepathic abilities because Crone is hearing all the other great ravens, and they're wanting to know if they fly, and she's just ignoring them. And then to find out, that they can sense magic. I mean, really, this bird has cognitive thoughts, right? She can understand things, and the stronger her powers get, the older she and the other ravens become. I thought that was kind of cool. And then just her name, Crone. That's a name to me that signifies wisdom and age. Uh, to me, I think with that name, those things almost go hand in hand.
Yeah. So I don't know if this was something. This is just what popped into my head. Was you remember? I think it was in chapter 2 after everybody had essentially been slaughtered by Anomander Rake. You remember that like whirling of birds scene where like they just kind of like flew out from Moonspawn over the battlefield and were, like I guess I just back then I thought that they were just, what you would imagine as your stereotypical bird, but this really short section with Crone like kind of made me go back and think about that scene like no, these are giant fucking like humanoid raven creatures is kind of what I imagined. So to put that into perspective, like, yeah, no, these guys were fucking up the battlefield back then. Like, they were causing some chaos.
I guess personally, I didn't get the feeling that they were like humanoid in any way, but they're just massive birds. I mean, we've got some pretty big birds. Condors are huge, but I just got the sense that these are bigger than that. Must have like I almost think of like the great eagles from Lord of the Rings. Like, you got the hobbits riding on them and stuff like that's kind of the scale that I kind of imagine.
I mean, I guess maybe then we have two different perspectives, but I just assumed humanoid because she does end up having conversations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So, but yeah, I don't know. You just got that was just what my mind immediately went to. But now that I hear what you're laying down, I see that as well.
And I know, again, in my short kind of recap here, I didn't do a very good job describing Moonspawn, but it's talking about the crags, and it's burning because it fled from Pale. and like the crags and the valleys and stuff. Like it almost, I guess I almost kind of envisioned like the Death Star, with the X-wings running down the. I don't even know what you want to call it, the gulches, and when Luke's going to drop the bomb
in the trench or whatever.
yeah,
Trenches
trench.
of
That's a good word for it. But that's kind of the vision I got, but like organic, not man made.
Yeah, right. No, dude, I had the exact same. That's fucked up. I had the exact same like thought. Like I was imagining Crone kind of flying through what would be like the trench of the Death Star, but instead of it being like you say, this man-made mechanical space thing, it's a giant fucking floating mountain that she is like traversing up, kind of like those scenes where like you see birds like flying really close to the water, and as they're flapping their wings, the tips of their wings are like making contact with the water. Like that's what I imagined, but just
Yeah,
vertical. And then as she gets to the peak of Moonspawn, she just like whirls around a couple of times and then goes back north towards Darujistan. So it was so short, but it was really cool to it was so visionary.
yeah. I definitely did not do it justice in the description that was there.
I kind of like having to describe it outside of the summary anyway, so I feel like that's a bit more fun.
Yeah, it definitely gives us a little bit more to talk about. Um,
Right.
and I guess this just kind of popped into my head here. Most of these chapters have I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't call it like a poem or anything, but like I guess like a saying here, and I guess maybe it'd be cool if we just read these, at each chapter. So I'm just gonna go for it here.
Let's do it.
Um, so we got chapter 6. And it reads: "There is a cable breathing deeper than the bellows, drawing up the emerald fires beneath rain-glistened cobbles. While you may hear the groaning from the caverns below, the whisper of sorcery is less than the dying sigh of a thief stumbling unwilling into Darujistan's secret web. Cable fragment, puddle, B1122, question mark."
Yeah, these I almost don't even know what to make sense of these, because like I almost feel like they're deliberate foreshadowing, but I can never like fully dissect what it is that they're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, even after reading this chapter and then going back and reading that, I guess to me, I don't really feel, at least like in this particular one, that there was anything given away by it.
No, I mean I feel like enough of it is, like I can make sense of, Thief, Jerujasan's dark web. Like that kind of stuff like I can pick out based on what I read in the chapter, but how it all cohesively flows together, like I don't know. But that was also one of the things that the Kashmora Reddit user and I were talking about, was the fact that like Gardens of the Moon is extremely well written. However, it's one of the least favorites.
Really?
Yeah, is what they were saying. Like as a Malazan Books of the Fallen community goes, they love the way the Gardens of the Moon is written, but at the same time, it's not their favorite because all of the other ones just trumpet so much more.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
and from what I understand, is he wrote Gardens of the Moon way before he actually like published it. So I guess a lot of people trip over the language, which I can completely understand, because I myself have had to read a paragraph or two or three times just to kind of like really understand what he's trying to say. But I like
Yeah,
it.
I'm definitely enjoying it so far. It's probably, I mean, it's different from anything that I've read before, which is, I mean, it's great. It gets kind of boring to read the same thing over and over again.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and going back to Krupp, and that
Krupa?
dreaming segment in the last chapter, how many times he described his, the running of his feet, or his feet being tired, or just how overweight he was. I mean, he could have totally described it the exact same way, copied and paste, so to speak, but he didn't.
Right.
I don't really have anything else to add to that very small section.
No, I guess the only thing I would add to this is in reading this, it's I guess Animander Rake so far isn't named, but we as the reader can infer and have we know who it is, but it says Crone is flying to her lord. Well, we know it's Moonspawn. We know who the Lord of Moonspawn is. That's why I just used the name. I didn't say Crone's flying to her lord. We know who it is.
I was wondering about that, but now that you explained it, it makes sense.
Different perspectives, man.
I like it. It adds some uniqueness.
Well, yeah, it does, and I'm glad we get to bounce things off each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. It makes it fun and enjoyable too.
Right.
I don't know if
Well,
I still don't think we're gonna get angry at each other.
yeah, we gotta have that. We're each gonna have a hill to die on here at some point. Some book, I'm sure.
Okay, well, we'll make a mental note of that and see what unfolds.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. We got what 9.5 books to go. 9 3/4 books to go.
Right. Yeah, we're only a quarter away through this, but hey, so seventh episode, like we're rolling. This is fun. I'm enjoying it.
It is. Yeah.
Well, cool. If you don't have anything else to add, I think I'm gonna move on to section 2. If you're cool.
Take it away, my friend.
Sweet. From the east side of the city, Jerujistan is described as being tiered, as in like each step is like elevated above the last. We reach the last of these tiers, which are the estates of Jerujistan's nobility and what was described as the city's publicly known sorcerers. On a flat topped hill sat Majesty Hall, where the council members met. From the days of kings long past stood the only remnant from the castle that once stood on Majesty Hall, the gate known as Despot's Barbican. Standing in front of the gate were 2 men of the City Watch. One of these particular City Watch members is watching the councilman Turban Orr, who frequently visits the gate. And frequently visits the gate at these very odd hours of the night. The City Watch member observes Turban Orr pacing and then tapping his finger in rhythm of his steps on his sword. Turban Orr must not be a patient man, is what is going through this City Watch member's mind, because for 6 years, the City Watch member has been posted here at this very gate, walking around and studying every crack and speck on this gate. Due to this, he has developed a close relationship to this gate. The Barbican represented something of the past and sat patiently waiting. It's this thought that gives the City Watch member that if in his power, he would never let happen. This gate also gave him the reason to be what he reveals as a circle breaker, which is a spy. Turban Orr is waiting rather impatiently for another council member, and they will be going on a walk. But by the time they would return, the circle breaker would be relieved of his station and be delivering a message according to his master's command. My first initial thought was My Strange Addiction. Anyone? Like, how close of a relationship does he have with this gate? Is this like the episode where they like fall in love with 30 different inflatables or some shit?
Well, I don't know. I mean, 6 years, walking the same gate, and not much happening. You probably, you start looking close and you notice things. I guess.
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna disagree, but like, I don't know. That's just the first thought I got was like, is he caressing the gate? Does he like spank it a little? You know? Does he like give it a little smoochy poos? I don't know. Why my mind went there, I don't know. I just like he seems to really have a connection with this gate.
I will
But
admit I did not have any of the same thoughts that you did.
what thoughts did you have, sir?
I don't even really remember. I mean, to me, there wasn't a lot that stuck out about this. It was kind of interesting. The descriptions of how, like you said, how close to this wall, this gate he is. But I didn't. I guess I don't really feel like I connected a whole lot with this particular part. It was just to me, it almost felt like some filler. He's at this gate and he's waiting for somebody to show up. I
Gotcha.
mean, that's my thoughts.
I've got some other input. If you want to hear what's going on or what
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, definitely. I mean, that may stir some other thoughts in my brain.
At the very end of this chapter, not they, but the author talks about the gate's promise of resurrection. And I think that he's clearly referring to the kings of the past. And what is it that the circle breaker would stop if he had the power to do something about it? So I feel like these are related in some way, shape, or form. Like, was it a bad thing that the kings did, or was it a good thing? And if he had the power, would he be stopping good or bad from resurrecting? If that makes sense. So like I feel like this gate is a representation because the author makes a very special note of the fact that it's like the last standing of the castle, the last standing piece of the castle that used to occupy the space. And the author alludes to something, uh, a promise of resurrection. So my question is what exactly would he stop if he had the power?
I guess. I mean, just in my mind here, like a despot would be, I guess, like a king who rules in absolute power, and they're usually pretty cruel. So I mean, to me, maybe it's symbolizing, it's not a good thing. Maybe, that he's thinking. It's
And
whatever
that's
he's.
sorry, go ahead, keep going.
I didn't have a fully formed thought on it. It was just kind of harebrained there.
I 100% agree though. Like that's where my thought was originally, but also at the same time, like we have to acknowledge the fact that like even if the king was quote unquote doing good things, there are always those people that don't like what he's doing. So it was just more kind of like my mind went to was where is this sword break not sword breaker circle breaker, where is he? you know Obviously he's delivering a message of some kind from his master, blah blah blah, which actually brings me into my next point. But according to the dramatis personae at the beginning, the circle breaker is an agent of the L. And I think we'll read more about the L in a later segment here. But
I,
whatever the
I
L
thought
is,
I thought it was eel.
ah,
Not to shit on you, but like that's just kind of like I don't know. Like I mean, maybe we don't have a snake. We've got an eel. They're kind of slimy and
hmm.
solitary creatures.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, You're probably right. It's probably eel. This is for whatever reason. I just L. I don't know why. But now that I'm looking at the word, like that is 100% wrong.
Is that the hill you want to die on? It's L.
Yes, yes, it's L. No, no, no. I think I could find better hills to die on. But
All right.
the L, or god damn it, the eel, the eel in the dramatis personae is described as like a rumored master spy. So the fact that the circle breaker here is acknowledging that the L exists tells the audience here in a very subtle way that it's not known. The eel person is not a known source. It's just they're a rumor.
Right. Somebody out there.
Right. So I'm guessing it's probably just a very, close knit. I'm assuming that there's maybe more than one circle breaker out there, but who knows? My last thought on this section was he makes a note that if he's lucky, he'll avoid what he speculates as Jerujistan entering a civil war. So even on top of the Malazan threat, they also have to worry about war amongst themselves. I don't know if you caught that.
Yes, and I was thinking about that. I feel like maybe the reason for that is I don't know, remember if it's in the next section, but at least what I thought would be the reason that would cause it is described. And maybe it's not, maybe we'll never find out, but when we get to it, we can talk about it. I don't remember if it's in one of your sections or if it's in mine, but I did have thoughts about that.
We can circle back too. I just in this particular scenario, or not the scenario, but this section, is that I thought it was going back to the whole, the army being full of rich noble kids with their dicks hanging out. So I mean, obviously, I think that there's acknowledgement amongst these council members and probably even the nobility that their army is fucking dumb. So they're probably what I would imagine going about it, a different way. Like they're not gonna try to fight because they don't really have an army that is competent. Is where my initial thought went with that.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I guess, in this chapter, we don't really get a whole lot of mention um, of an army or anything like that.
Yeah, it was very, very subtle in one of the previous chapters.
Yeah,
we talked about the army not being able to do shit.
Yeah, a bunch of green kids, basically.
Right. Yeah. But those were essentially my few thoughts on this section. I think it'd be safe to say if you want to move on, you can.
Sure. Sorry, we kind of bounced some ideas off each other a little bit there, but yeah, I still don't have a ton of deep thoughts on it, I guess. Not like you did.
Oh, that's okay. That's the beauty of a podcast.
Right. All right, we'll move on to section 3. And it starts off with a quote. It says, "As this may be in your interest," says, "Hi, Alchemist Baruch, reading from the parchment that was delivered by Rold." Man, I hear that name Rold, and I don't know if you've ever watched Letterkenny, but there's a character in that show named Rold, and he's a little meth head guy, and like that is exactly what I imagine.
I have not seen Letterkenny, but I'm gonna have to go watch it now.
My wife hates it, but it is. I think it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. Anyways, so parchment delivered by Rold. The news in the message had Baruch send his messengers out into the city. Councilman Turban Orr walks in the garden with Councilman Fetter. It remains known only as Circle Breaker, a servant of the Eel, or L, as Justin says. Baruch could easily find out who Circle Breaker is if he chose to, but Eel's identity was wanted by many, but unknown so far. Baruch remains content not knowing Circle Breaker's identity and wonders if he's being used by the Eel, but he was not overly worried about that possibility. Baruch uses a cantrip or a spell to make the note disappear to, quote, a safe place, joining his previous notes. A noise at the window catches his attention, and a bulky black shape somehow managed to pass his magical barriers undetected. And I guess we'll throw in our episodic Wheel of Time reference. I just think of the wards that Aes Sedai, they weave to protect their dreams, or even physically, something crosses them, they get warned.
That's what I thought too.
I'm glad we got the same thoughts. Baruch waves his hand, and the shutters to the window opens, and he sees a great raven. We know this to be Crone. The bird breaks the glass and enters. Crone tells Baruch not to waste his time with the spell, and there's no need for guards. Crone only brings information. Oh, and does Baruch have any food? Crone is hungry. Baruch asks who sent her, and it's none other than the Lord of Moonspawn himself. This gives Baruch a pause, and he asks what the Lord of Moonspawn wants with a peaceful alchemist. He wants to meet Baruch ASAP, and he best decide quickly because Crone is the oldest great raven and has seen 100,000 years of, quote, human folly, and that's why she looks like she's beat to shit. And another quote, I am but a winged witness to your eternal madness. I just thought that was a cool quote. Baruch sarcastically comments that it is well known great ravens ate the dead outside Pale. Crone replies that they were not the first to feast on flesh and blood. And it kind of made me wonder if there was some cannibalism going on at some point, like widespread cannibalism. Baruch does agree to meet Animander, or the Lord of Moonspawn. At that moment, Rold knocks and enters the room, saying there is someone at the gate who wants to talk. And my first thought was that this was Animander, but it turns out that's not the case. Crone does not trust Rold and tells Baruch that he has a demon named Ambition on his shoulders. He is greedy and treacherous. And it turns out it is Turban Or at the gate. Crone wants to see this encounter and could offer advice. So she disguises herself as a dog, and Rold was sent to bring in Turban Or.
Yeah, I'm going back to the cannibalism thing. Like that was my first thought too. Was like, I mean, she's 100,000 years old.
That's old as fuck.
That's old as fuck. So, I think I'm assuming. I mean, are you interpreting Crone as a girl?
I think it was described at some point that Crone is a she.
Okay, I'm not.
I'm pretty like 99% confident.
Okay, yeah. So I think that she's referring to something even older than she is, some type of beast or, non-human something. Or, as you may be speculating here, is that maybe there's a very small, hopefully small stint of cannibalism.
Yeah, I guess my thought was, this land seems to have seen a lot of war and shitty times. Frankly, I'm sure farmers are at a premium, and if there's a war going on, maybe they got drafted or conscripted into the army, and maybe there wasn't enough food to go around. Just spitballing some ideas there.
I think that is probably as deep as it could go. The way that you bring that up, some type of hardship, right? I almost get the feeling of like, what is it called? Like the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
Just that sense of like all knowledge is lost, all, you know, empathy and humanity are lost, and so now this is maybe a rebuilding sort of type of. I'm probably way off, but I also didn't catch that Crone had transferred herself into a dog until the next section. Like I didn't catch
Oh,
that at first.
oh, really? Yeah, I thought that was cool. I mean, you got this 100,000-year-old bird that can seemingly do quite a bit of shit.
My question is like, and maybe this is just because I didn't catch it, but did Crone do that, or did uh, Baruch do that?
My thoughts. I think Crone did it.
So she can. I know that she can, sense magic and a very specific type of magic, right?
Well, I guess yeah. If you can sense magic, I don't remember if it was a certain like type or not, but um, as far as turning herself into a dog, I think she just basically glamored herself.
Right. Yep. Yep.
I also thought it was interesting that Baruch wasn't really that worried, at the possibility of being played by somebody else, somebody that they don't know.
What do you mean?
Well, if Baruch, he's wondering if he's getting played by the eel. Like it crossed his mind, but he's like, "Yeah, I'm not really that worried about
Do you have any speculation? I didn't catch any of that, so I'm just trying to dig information out of you.
it." Speculation as to what?
Yeah.
Yeah, what? I'm not following you,
Oh.
man.
Oh. Sorry. Sorry. Like, what do you think that he? So why do you think that he's got the? Why do you think he's carrying this nonchalance of the eel?
I guess I kind of get the feeling that Baruch, thinks maybe he knows more than the eel. The eel, like you said, is supposed to be this master spy or whatever, but I know there's a quote in there that says something to the effect of, the eel knows more about Baruch than Baruch knows about, them, seemingly. Um,
Wasn't it also mentioned in that letter that the eel aligns with Baruch's position potentially? Or am I imagining that? I could have swore I read that.
well, there was something along those lines. I can't remember exactly how the quote went, but yes, there was something about that. I yeah, but I don't know. Just if a spy knows who you are, you've obviously caught their attention, and to just nonchalant was a good word that you used to not really be that worried about it. You're pretty confident in yourself.
Right. And that's the sense that I get of the character Baruch, which we'll get to explore a little bit later. But I guess what are some of your initial thoughts of the characters that we've met so far?
Um, it, I don't really know which side anybody is on. I kind of feel like, but I am interested by all of them, and uh, I want to see where things are going.
Yeah, and I think we're in the part of the sub book, so to speak, of Jerusalem, where we're I think it's 3 chapters in total, and we're right smack dab in the middle of kind of like the introductory chapter, right? Like we're getting introduced to the characters of Jerusalem and some of the actions that they're taking place in, but also reading this middle chapter, I would assume I'm gonna call it. I agree with you. I'm kind of left with this. Okay, yes, there's these characters. They're distinctly blah blah blah, but like, what exactly does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Is that kind of where you're going? Are we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And also, like these councilmen, like I know they're not terribly described as to what exactly their specific qualities are. I'm still pretty interested. as to some of the politicalness that may be taking place.
Yeah, like it's hard to know how people are aligned, and things are descriptive but left kind of vague. Where people stand so far.
Right, and also and they brought up alchemist in this chapter, but the author never distinctly says an alchemist is able to channel, or is sorry, not channel, is able to conjure warrens, right? Or use magic, which in this segment those two are brought together. So, do you remember how in the last chapter with Crocus and his uncle was an alchemist?
I did not remember that.
So, yeah, because remember the fine tooth saw that he uses to like open the latch of the youngest daughter of the Jarul
That he
estate.
spends 20 minutes on.
Right, yeah. I remembered because he took it from his uncle, who was an alchemist. So I'm curious. It's like, are there alchemists that are just strictly alchemists, or are there alchemists that perform magic, or are there alchemists that are also like sorcerers or mages?
Well, I mean, we do find out later that Baruch can make a warren or uses warren. I'm a little confused on that yet, but um, they can access the magic to some extent.
Right. Which I think is cool, and the way that he is described, just as simple as putting a note away. Like I thought that was super cool how the author describes how he essentially stores this piece of parchment.
At first, I thought it was like he was gonna like in 10 seconds this message will just self-destruct, but
So
it's
like Inspector
you know
Gadget shit.
yeah, but yeah, it's not destroyed. It's just you put it wherever you put it, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I mean, I didn't have a ton outside of that. I don't
Yeah,
know if you have
we're
anything else.
no, let's keep it moving here. Let's hear your next section here, section 4.
Cool. Uh, so we're basically at what is called Lady Simtel's estate. On a garden wall, hiding inside a shadow, laid Ralak Nam. The balcony overlooking the garden, behind some transparent curtains, were two silhouettes. Ralak was studying the more feminine one. Ralak had been observing Lady Simtel for the last 5 nights now, and he has observed that many men had come to visit, but two in particular were of interest as they were councilmen. The women the woman and the man revealed themselves by stepping out onto the balcony. Ralph kind of smiles as he recognizes the man as Councilman Lim, and he then readies his crossbow and loads a poison bolt. He takes aim and hesitates as he's able to overhear their conversation. Lady Simtel is questioning Lim on the quote unquote alchemist, a man who smells of sulfur and brimstone, could have any sort of political power. Lim laughs at Simtel and begins to explain, or mansplain, I guess whatever you want to call it, that per his sources, that wizards fear the alchemist and name him and actually have a title for what I'm assuming is Baruch. To which Lim adds that this alone suggests some type of secret cabal to which the sorcerers are gathering around. Simtel responds to this by asking if the alchemist has council ties. Councilman Lim essentially responds that if he does, there is no evidence to prove it, and if he doesn't, then that could change this very night. Ralik Nam eye rolls with pretty much his whole head, and the thought of and just the thought of politics makes him roll his eyes very exaggerated. He goes into a mental tirade about Lady Simtal's rise or abuse of power and that offering her the vice of between her legs to council members added to the riches that she had stolen and to what her every greed and basically to her every or to whet her every greed. Rallick would kill tonight, and while the crime didn't directly involve Rallick, he would get his vengeance. As he mouths the word patience, he aims the crossbow, his rewards moments away. Dun dun dun! I didn't expect a switch. I thought it was gonna go right into Turban Orr and Baruch from the previous section. But we get this nice little jewel of a section in this chapter.
Yeah, and I think you're right that this alchemist that is feared is likely Baruch. Um, yeah, well, I'll got some things to circle back to with this. I think later on.
Okay. I guess the first note that I have is that I want to know more about this crime, right? Like Rallick acknowledges that the crime was not committed against him, but it's told to the reader that unlike Simtil's victim, Rallick had no pride to halt his vengeance. It sounds like Simtil rose to power in a less conventional manner, is what I'm interpreting it, and liked or killed or committed some type of crime and essentially has paid or slept with people to keep their mouth shut about it. So, what do you think about that? Does that would you think the same thing, or how would you interpret that?
Yeah, I mean, power is power. You do what you got to do to keep it, right?
I mean, he specifically makes the in the section about how she is using what is between her legs as a way of catering to these councilmen's vices.
I mean, it. I don't know if that's like a kind of a tired trope, but I mean, you see that in a lot of books, right? I
Oh,
mean,
100. Yeah.
it's not really anything new, but it's also not really, I mean, it's effective. I mean, what else do you say, right?
It is effective. I don't know. I mean, you're dead on as far as it being a trope. Not so much in the Wheel of Time. I don't really feel like that was. Yeah, I'm probably wrong there. I have to go back and read it, dude. Again, but I don't. Maybe it was just less direct. But I feel like the way that the author says this is a very noble way of calling her a whore.
Yeah, I agree with that. Speaking of the Wheel of Time, yeah, it's been such a long time since I read the beginning of that series. If we reread it now, I would probably interpret things very differently now as an adult versus a middle schooler, high school aged young man. Um, and also, my mom just finished reading The Great Hunt, and I gave her The Dragon Reborn, so she started that. I'm not sure how far she is, though.
Well, that's good. I mean, they say that if you can make it through the first two, then you're probably set to go.
She liked it a lot, so she was excited to get into the third one.
That's good. Maybe she'll read these books too.
Maybe.
I also kind of piggyback off of that. He states that it isn't anything personal, or he states that it is personal. But I wonder if this has anything to do with like a loved one or a friend, or was this maybe like his parents' estate? But we know that it's not a contract, and we know that it isn't some type of an assassin's guild thing. So we know that with this mention that Ralph is clearly part of the guild. He is an assassin, but he's been hiding out in this on this walled garden, observing this woman for the last 5 days, 5 nights, rather, because he
Creeper
has some
vibes
type of
much?
what?
Creeper vibes much?
A little bit, but I mean, he's pissed, right? Like he wants to kill some bitches.
Yeah,
And
that is
then
true.
also, as he's aiming his crossbow, am I correct in saying that he's aiming at Lady Simtol? Did you interpret that too?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because it doesn't distinctly say. He just says that he aims his crossbow and that his reward was moments away.
Right. And I mean, my thought was that she's the one, I guess, to put it in a little bit nicer way, she's the one offering herself up, right, for these councilmen. And if she's taken out of the picture, whatever favor she's giving in return isn't going to be there anymore.
Right.
All right, we can move on to section 5 here.
Sweet. Take
So
it away.
we transition back to Baruch and Turban Orr. So Turban Orr admires Baruch's hound, which we know is really Crone in disguise. He apologizes for showing up so late. Baruch asks what he's here for. Turban says that there is a vote in 2 days to propose neutrality with Malazan, avoiding war and the same fate as Pale. He says the support of Darujistan's sorcerer would greatly help the cause. So I kind of feel like alchemist and sorcerer are almost interchangeable terms here.
I think so too.
So if Baruch supported this, it would help the cause. It would sway the doubters. And Crone speaks to Baruch and warns that he's, quote, hunting in earnest. So he's kind of fishing here, I feel like. And Baruch kind of has to, apologize for the dog, as it were, because he's got a bad leg or something, and that's why he had like an outburst, which was really him speaking to Baruch. Baruch says that he's confused. Most of the sorcerers are garbage. Not all of them, but most are. Some are only happy if they've got something to bitch about. But they all recognize power and that Baruch has sway with the sorcerers. Baruch says that it is a mistake to assume that he has influence among the sorcerers. And even if he did, why would he support the proposal of neutrality? He feels it would be pointless. Turban asks if he would like to end up like the Wizards of Pale, assassinated by an Emperor's Claw, and says that Moonspawn is on its own against the Empire. Baruch says this does not match the information that he has. And Corone interjects here again and tells Baruch not to read into it too much because they are, in fact, both wrong, which I think that's pretty interesting, and I don't really know what to make of that. Turban asks if it would be a good idea to share some information here since, their information from each other is different. Baruch's like, nah, brah, good. Baruch asks what the hell the point is of throwing the threat of the Empire in. If the proposal is voted down, all the wizards die by the Empire's hand, and if it passes, is everything going to be happily ever after? And basically that a vote for neutrality is just going to be the beginning of annexation. Baruch again reminds Turban that he doesn't have any influence and to have a good night. And he wants Rold to escort him out. As he's doing this, Turban says that he's making a huge mistake and they might have to remove any wording about the majory in the proposal. Crone says this is a bold statement and to push him further to see what he can learn. Baruch says that one may hope that the vote fails, to which Turban replies by his hand, they already have the majority for the vote to pass, but adding his vote would be kind of the frosting on the cake. But one vote will win it all the same. While this is going on, Crone thinks she hears a coin spinning. Feel like we've heard that before. We must be getting some, I guess, intervention is the word that comes to mind right now. There's a surge of power coming from within the city, and it makes Crone shiver.
I understand this section, but at the same time, I don't quite understand this section. Like, I know that there's a proposal for neutrality, right, against the troops of Malazan, which makes sense because, again, Darujistan's soldiers are fucking dumb and, again, trying to just get their dicks wet. So, this is kind of where I was alluding to a little bit before, with the whole. I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. I feel like this. I feel like it's giving you enough to kind of feel like you know what's going on, but at the same
Right.
time, keeping you a little bit in the dark.
Yes, I would agree with that because, like, at face value, you understand that they clearly don't see eye to eye because Baruch is just like, oh, okay, well, if we, do agree, then we're just going to be slaughtered like the wizards at Pale. But if we don't agree, then what? What's going to happen then? Where is this neutrality really going to get us?
Right.
But
Yeah. Maybe it's not a slaughter, but it's. I mean, it's forced slavery, maybe for lack of a better term.
yeah, it's just like peeling back the layers of this. I feel like is a little bit of a challenge, just because there is so much to unravel.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and I really liked one of my favorite things about this whole chapter was, Crone kind of being there in disguise and feeding Baruch things. Hey, like this guy's bullshitting you. Like press him some more, see what he really knows. Like I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, you totally get a sense of like there's a game being played. Like both parties are playing a game. Crone is acknowledging that yeah, this is totally a game. Do this instead.
Big time.
I also I don't know what it is about this great raven, just curled up in the dog, and I think even Turban or pets the dog um, as the section begins, and I think Baruch gives like a silent chuckle about it, which I just think is just so fucked up, like in just this masterful, deceitful way. Like you just petted a great raven, you
That
know.
looks like a dog.
Right. And that outburst thing, like I didn't even put two and two together. Like I mean, obviously he Crone, whined or made some type of dog sound and then, Baruch acknowledging, oh, he's just got a bum leg. But I didn't like label it as an outburst to what she was saying. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was well done. To me, it almost feels like they're looking at two shit choices: slaughter or a takeover by political means.
Right. I mean, I think that, just dumbing it down just for myself, clearly we have, and, going back to the previous section with Lady Simtel and Councilman Lim on the balcony and their conversation about the alchemist, which we can, I think, safely say is Baruch. At this point in time, Baruch is denying that he has any type of ties as any type of ranked member amongst sorcerers, right? But that is clearly not the case according to the previous section. So he is playing dumb in he's being deceitful with Turban Or, which makes me think that it is Baruch that's playing the game and not Turban Or. I mean, clearly Turban Or wants something from Baruch, and that is just the ally, an allyship between the nobility, well, not nobility, but the councilmen, and the sorcerers. Is what I'm getting from this. But it kind of seems like from this very small section, or just the very beginning of this chapter, that I feel like the councilmen are kind of the top dogs of Jerujistan, or potentially any city in this universe. But as well as you have like the magical side of it as well.
Yeah, I get the sense that Baruch's definitely a player, even though he's trying to downplay it and stay low key.
Right. So I guess is if how do you imagine the scenario would be if he didn't downplay himself? Like if he would reveal that, you know what, as a matter of fact, I do have some pretty strong influences among the mages and sorcerers of the city. How do you think that would have benefited or not benefited the conversation here?
I don't know. I feel like that would I feel like the fact that he acts like he doesn't have power increases his power. You know, if he just came out and was like, "Yeah, I'm the shit," like he probably wouldn't have the influence that he actually does.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely, as we've mentioned, there's enough there at face value to understand what is happening between the interaction, but like I'm really wanting to dig deeper, and I'm not able to, which is kind of driving me nuts.
Yeah, that's kind of the hard thing about doing one chapter a week. I mean, I think it would be tough, with everything we both have going on, to doing two episodes a week or even doing two chapters at a time. There's just so much stuff that happens in here.
Right. No, I think the pace that we've got is perfect. But I'm just hoping that it's not something that is left out for very much longer.
Right.
So, um, and I again, coin spinning. So, I think that brings us into the next section, as we have kind of what I would assume a sequence of events just at different places.
Why don't you open it up?
Cool. So we go back to Rallick, and his finger is tightened on the trigger, and he's thinking, you know what? No more luxuries for you, Lady Simitel. Between breaths, right? So between what I would assume an inhale, exhale, inhale, a whirring, spinning sound, spinning, enters his head, whispering words that shifted everything over in his mind. His plan for what he calls a quick vengeance falls away as new plans arise. Rallick then moves an inch to his left and fires his bolt. The bolt hits Councilman Lim, and he falls into the glass door, breaking it. Lady Simtil screams. Rallick at this point rolls onto his back, hides the crossbow in some type of space between the buildings, and then moving over the wall and then dropping into the alley below. As he descends to what is the Jeru district of Jerujistan, from the district of the nobility, he whispers to himself that more blood will be spilt and that in the end she will fall. And then when she falls, an old friend will arise. As he turns a corner and walks towards the Phoenix Inn, we already know about the Phoenix Inn, he is stopped by a man gesturing to join him in an alleyway a little ways away. Rallick followed the gestures, and after his eyes adjusted to the darkness of this new alleyway, the man states that Rallick's vendetta has saved his life tonight. Rallick replies with, "Oh," as if he's somehow confused. We are then introduced to clan leader Ocelot. He replies that the night has been in shambles and questions Rallick if he's heard anything. Rallick simply just says no. Ocelot begins to explain that someone is killing us, and a war has been started on the rooftops, stating that he's lost 5 roamers in less than an hour, and there is more than one killer out there. Rallick seems to be kind of indifferent and asks if the Vorkan has gone out, and could this potentially be a challenge to the guild's mastery? Ocelot begins to explain that Vorkan is busy recalling all the clans, and that what he does know was that this was some type of attack outside of the Guild of Assassins. Rallick suggests that it may be claws of the Empire. Ocelot, agrees that it's very likely because the claws are supposed to be the best assassins. But then why would they specifically target the guild? Ocelot turns the conversation from priorities of expected social norm amongst the guild. So Ocelot needs a favor from Rallick. Ocelot begins to explain that they are setting a trap, motioning to the Phoenix Inn. He tells Rallick to make sure people know who and what he is and what he does as he enters the Phoenix Inn. Rallick replies with bait and then makes for the Phoenix Inn and enters. So, yeah, pretty. Again, I was super surprised by this section. I was not expecting for him to not kill his target.
Yeah, and do you think that was because of the spinning coins? Do you think that was Open's influence?
I'm at this point in time, like, anytime there's a coin, I feel like either the author is intentionally leading us to water and there's a crocodile there waiting to ambush us, or this is going to be just like spinning coin is now synonymous with Opan. Because that's 100% what I'm getting from it, is that this, whenever we hear the spinning sound and the fact that, he's hearing words inside of his head telling him to drop what his current vendetta, and hey, here's a new one, here's an even better one. Opan guiding him to their game or their fucked up plan.
Who this trap that's being set? Who do you think that is for?
I think that is for the killer of the assassins.
I kind of felt like it was for Cotillion and presumably Sari, and I can't remember the third one. Amanus. Like I think, to me, when I was reading this, like that's who I thought was, who killed these 5 roamers and everything. Like, I mean, I think that makes sense, unless you don't think so.
No, I think in the last chapter, I think that we agreed that it was Cotillion, Amanus, and Sari. No, I think so too. I think that they are the ones, and this goes back to kind of our predictions at the end of the last episode, was that we had speculated that this was indeed a movement to get like against the Assassin's Guild, which seems to be what Ocelot is or anticipating, or at least knows that this is what they're headed for.
Right.
Because he brings up Tallow, the assassin that was killed in the last chapter. So, and they have some banter on well, they're speculating as to like why would the Empire be fucking with the Assassin's Guild? Like, what did we do?
Yeah, why are they have noticed?
Right, and it seems to have caused enough attention that Vorkan, which we know from the previous chapters, like the head honcho, like she runs the whole Assassin's Guild. So it sounds like she, from what I'm gathering from the section, is that she is gathering all of the clan leaders to talk about what's going on.
I feel like that's too important that we're definitely going to find more about that soon. Where that's going.
Yeah, I think that and this is just me making a stark prediction. I think that the next chapter is hopefully going to tie all this in a nice, please, a nice little neat bun. That's never the case, though. That's wishful hoping.
I guess we'll find out. I'm not really sure. I mean, it could even get more messy. Who knows?
It probably will, but I'm hoping for a nice little tie-in here because I feel like so far we've just have like different like solid sections of different people, places, things, events. You know, I'm waiting for like something to be tied together. You know,
Yeah, and I've kind of like that. I mean, I feel like your sections have been a little bit more action oriented, um, but the sections that I've done have been, it's been more setup and intrigue and things like that. And not that I haven't enjoyed your sections, but I'm glad I've got the sections I've got this week.
well, I mean, and I know that we talked about this over text message, but I mean, let's be honest, it was a little bit of a slower chapter compared to what we have been used to. So
Right?
going
Yeah.
back and making sure that like we understand, okay, what are these conversations telling us? Which I think where you're going with this, and I'm sorry to interrupt, is that in previous experience, mainly the Wheel of Time, like I never gave those conversations a really in-depth breakdown, right? Which I going back, I kind of wish that I would have because even though they may have been the duller moments of that interaction or that particular chapter, I think that maybe it would have helped just brighten whatever was going on currently a little bit more. So I appreciate that even though this chapter is a little bit slower, we're still taking the time to understand and digest what is actually happening.
Yeah, there's going to be some payoff here at some point, and maybe, I mean, who knows? Maybe it won't even be this book, or But I I'd have to. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more questions out of this book than we get questions answered. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, read on, read and find out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I find it interesting, and maybe this is again me mispronouncing a name, but you read it as Ocelot, right?
Yes.
Okay, which
Like the jungle cat.
right, yep, yep. So I'm wondering if that is the case, is the name of the clan leader a representation of what type of assassins they are? You know, are they like cat like or do they kind of like how different like martial arts moves have different type of like fighting styles. Like that's kind of where I'm going with
Yeah, I
maybe
would
the name.
imagine it's a code name. I would think it's something along those lines.
Well, I mean, does Vorkan mean anything? I mean, that's not a word that I'm familiar with.
It doesn't mean anything to me,
So maybe it's just happenstance. But hey, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
right?
Because he doesn't. I mean, it's just Ocelot is a clan leader, but he doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it was distinctly mentioned which clan.
I don't think so. No,
So maybe that is a mystery yet to be unraveled as well.
it is a very good possibility.
Well, um, I think I'm satisfied with this section. We,
Okay,
yeah, want to move on?
sure.
Cool. Take her away.
All right, we revert back to Baruch and Turban again. So Turban Orr leaves, and Crone returns to her natural form of the Great Raven. She says there's a quote shaping in the night, and I'm not really sure what that meant, but Baruch also felt it. Crone says her master is coming, and she has other tasks to take care of. Baruch opens the window, and as Crone is about to leave, she has a prophecy or a vision. And she says, quote, I see 12 ships riding a deep harbor. 11 stand tall in flames. Brooke asks about the 12th, and quote, on the wind, a hailstorm of sparks fill the night sky. I see them spinning about the last vessel, still spinning. Then Crone flew away. I got the distinct vibe that these were the 12 cities, Darujistan being the last one that's not under Malazan Empire control, and I think that is kind of reaffirmed here in the next paragraph or two. Um, So Kron flew away. Baruch looks at a map of the free cities, 11 now under Empire's control, Druzhstan the last. That's kind of where I drew my comparison. I mean, it's just beat me in the head. That's got to be what Kron was talking about. Suddenly, the lights go out in the room, and he hears the walls cracking open. Animander is here. He addresses Baruch as High Alchemist, and Baruch says that no title is needed. Baruch is just fine. Animander asks if the darkness is a problem. He's most comfortable in the dark. And Baruch says, yeah, it's fine. He uses some magic to light up the map on the table and discovers that Animander is Tisty Andy. And this was his first time meeting one face to face. He notices his ever-changing eyes and wonders if he can lie, which I thought was a weird and odd thing to have a thought about. So I guess we'll have to see if there's anything to that. If there's some lore that says that they're honest all the time. Animander is described as having jet black skin, silver hair, and he stands 7 feet tall and has a two-handed sword that's nearly as tall as he is. They sit and talk, and Animander says that she threw everything at him but couldn't bring him down. It takes a moment for Baruch to realize that he meant the Empress. Baruch says he can feel his power. How is he driven back? He knows Tayshren's relative power and knows that he's no match. Rake says that he has committed his mages and his warriors to the campaign in the north with Caladan Brood. He has a city in Moonspawn with children, priests, and 3 very old warlocks, and that he cannot defend the entire moon on his own. And so it was interesting that Baruch kind of has this realization that it's not just a rock, but it's, there's a city in there. Tayshren did not care about anybody around him, so to save his own people, he retreated, leaving Pale to fall. Animander didn't expect a full assault. Just him being present had kept a stalemate for 2 years. So Baruch asks what he wanted to meet with him for, and Animander says he wants an alliance. He's not fooled by the council on Majesty Hall. He knows it's the mages that rule Druzhstan. Animander says the Empress wants the, quote, lone pearl on this continent of mud, referring to Druzhstan, and she usually gets what she wants. Baruch says that Pale had its wizards, but when the battle began, that Animander's first thought was for Moonspawn, his moon, not the alliance he made with Pale. And this really seemed to irritate Animander, and he wants to know how he heard that. Baruch says that some of the mages from Pale actually escaped. Animander wants to know if they're in the city. Baruch wants to know why he wants to know if they're in the city. And Animander says he will have their heads. Well, why does he want their heads? Animander says basically, as soon as the assault started on Pale, the wizards fled. If they would have stayed, they would have been able to repel the attack. Tayshren was, I guess this is, confirming that Tayshren was really, killing his own people. He did, in fact, unleash demons on his own guys, which at first did confuse Animander. But rather than let them wander around and just kill indiscriminately, Animander expelled a great amount of power to destroy them. And because of that, he had to pull Moonspawn back, and he did so just moments before it was destroyed. Moonspawn drifted south. He hunted down all the wizards but 2. So when I read that, I took that as Animander left Moonspawn. It was kind of on autopilot. It was going in this direction. It's going to keep going. He knows where it's going to head. And he basically jumped off and was hunting down these other wizards, except for 2 of them. He'd prefer to get the other 2 alive so he can kill them like the others. but he will settle for their heads. Brooke says he will speak to the Cable about the alliance that Animander wants, and he asks Animander if he gets the wizards alive, will he use his sword on them? To which he replies, yes. I get the sense that there'd probably be some torture involved there. Brooke says he will only have their heads, to which Animander replies he is too merciful.
Yeah. So let's talk about these wizards.
Sounds like they're bitches.
Also, I feel I interpreted this as they abandoned Pale, didn't they? They pretty much
Yeah.
just left Pale to fall.
Yes.
So they deserted. But I feel like there was a deeper meaning. I thought it was because like the whole claw. Remember how we were told that the claw had been sent into Pale? I feel like that at this point is just a rumor. But I can't
Uh,
remember why the wizards fled. I feel like there was a reason, but I don't remember why.
I don't remember either. Um, but yeah, I mean, you got these wizards who could, band together and hold this assault back, and they just chickened out and ran for it and fucked over this entire city, which is an interesting thought to me, because I've been trying to make sense of things, So you've got Taishren, you've got Tattersail, Whiskey Jack, all these other people. They were on the other side of this, right? They're the ones basically assaulting Pale. So are they the bad guys? Or I haven't really fully made sense of that yet, I guess.
You no, I feel the same way. I really do. Because who are you supposed to be rooting for? And maybe that's the point is that you're not supposed to be rooting for anybody. Is that you're supposed to have some type of like ill feeling towards this, right? Because clearly Gano's and specifically Gano's is clearly on the side of the Empire as well as Tattersail. But clearly there's something about the bridge burners as well that the Empress doesn't want around. So, there's some conspiracy there, but also you add in the fact that okay, well, why was the rumor started that Pale Pale's wizards were taken out by assassins? Did Lucine plan this? Did she like bribe the wizards of Pale? Like it just seems too easy. Do you know what I mean? Like it just seems so
Yeah,
convenient that the Wizards of Pale just abandoned, and then Anomander Rake, being super pissed off, like hunts them down all but two. You know,
yeah. There's a lot of moving parts here for sure. It's yeah. I don't know.
and maybe that's the beauty of it is that we don't know, and we can really go off of what it is or what's in front of us. And again, maybe this will be one of those aha moments in later chapters where, like, you remember that one part in that one chapter where we were like super, like, on the fence about all of these different characters? It just comes into play and everything makes sense, or it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Could go either way.
Right. When you first started to surmise this chapter, you said there's a shaping in the night. So I think that the way that the chapter is laid out, because we have the section where we're introduced to Rallick. He is on the balcony, and then it cuts to Turban Orr and Baruch's conversation, right? And then we go back to Rallick, and then we come back to Baruch, Crone, and Anamander. I think that they're all supposed to be like just this one seamless event because at the end of Turban Orr and Baruch's conversation, Crone hears the coin spinning, right? Which then leads to the next section of is so Crone is hearing the spinning sound inside of Rallick head. And then that ties into, I think, what they're talking about in the shaping of the night is Opan's whispering words inside of Rallick's head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that she hears the coin spinning, but then she also hears, maybe doesn't hear the conversation that happens, but knows enough that one of these ascendants or gods is interfering with something. Is what I'm getting from that sequence of events.
It makes sense. I just like the way it was worded just kind of threw me off. But, you know,
Yeah, I think so too. And when you read it, and as we've been going this through the summary, that's honestly when it clicked. Was as you were reading that, I'm like, oh. So as you were reading, I'm like making notes in this document we have shared. So I just wanted to make sure that I said something.
well, I'm glad you did.
Also, can we talk about like the way that the Animander is described? Because I think it's fucking cool.
Yeah, like just fucking huge. Like I think like a 6.5 foot two-handed greatsword. Like that's taller than me.
Right. And I especially loved his eyes. He notices the ever changing eyes. And
Yeah,
I got
that was cool.
yeah, I got the sense of like a mood ring, you know? Like
That's a good. Yeah, I get that. I did not think of that, but yeah, that makes sense.
so I just thought that was cool. And like, jet black skin, silver hair, and this sword. I know that like they have conversations about taking heads off, you know, but also there's the what's not being said, and that is when he doesn't cut the head off. So you alluded to it a little bit with the whole torture thing, and Rake mentioning that it's way too merciful to just cut off the head. So like, what does he really do with his sword? Does is it some type of kind of like the stone that we saw bring or transfer Hairlock's soul to the fucking Pinocchio puppet? Is it some type of way of enhancing the magic? And so he maybe uses it to torture people he fucking is pissed at.
I think yeah, I think it's a sword, but it seems to be more than sword too, right? Like it must do something.
Yeah, I've got the feeling that we'll get maybe some more backstory on that,
I bet it's not very friendly
which might be cool to read. I mean,
for sure.
I definitely did not mind reading the massacre at Akito Khan. Like that was cool to read. So,
That was pretty cool. I'm sure we'll get more of that stuff too.
oh yeah. Also, isn't it? It's kind of cool to have some acknowledgement in this section, right? Like none of this is really new information, but some of it is. Like the fact that Moonspawn more or less retreated, right? So that conversation that Tattersail, Tayshren, Kalat, Whiskey Jack, and One Arm are having in their tent in like the very beginning of the book, where they're like, "Oh, well, they've retreated before, so they very well could do it again." Unfortunately, it was after Tayshren decided to be a fucking asshole. But so I don't know. It's cool to just see some of the things that like we knew and speculated on kind of come to fruition.
Yeah. Like I keep thinking about things like, we're talking about who do you root for? This thought just kind of popped into my head. I don't know if it will really go anywhere, but you know, like you said, Tayshrun's an asshole. And even though some of these other people are technically on that side, They must be trying to take him out, right?
I mean,
I don't know.
no, I think you're onto something because right, like Hairlock has something against him, and
Hairlock fucking hates him.
right, and after what happened with Pale, so does Tattersail.
Right.
And there's also the when Tishrin and Tattersail have their like deck of dragons conversation, she withholds things that he didn't pick up on. So yeah, I guess that's a great way to put it. Is just like who do you root for? Because there's even with the Manus Cotillion and Sorry, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's safe to assume that they are probably the worst of the worst at this point.
I think so.
I feel like not very many people are rooting for those three. Like they seem to be doing a lot of really crazy shit, but there's enough intrigue to maybe make yourself doubt them, right? Because they clearly have some type of animosity or vengeance towards Lucine and the Empire because from what we've gathered, they don't believe that she came into it the correct way or the right way or however that was worded. So clearly there's some type of revenge there. But does that make them wrong? Does that make them right? Does that make Lucine right? Does that so yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Like who do you root for?
I'm not sure yet, other than I'm just rooting for Tayshron to get what's coming to him.
Right. Yeah. I would have to say that my favorites are probably Tattersail.
Yeah, I like Tattersail, and I like Animander quite a bit also.
Yep. Krupp. Kroop. Krop.
Groot.
Kroop. I think he's. I don't know. I'll swing to this in the next section, but my final thoughts on Krupp. Maybe not final, but thoughts as we go. Is there anything else you want to add to this section? I feel like we get some acknowledgement. We understand what happened at Pale a little bit more closely, um, as well as we get kind of an interaction between Darugistan's alchemist Baruch and his hierarchy amongst the sorcerers, which confirms the conversation that Councilman Lim and Lady Simmental were talking about.
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to add. That I said there was going to have something I wanted to circle back to, and it was the comment about the Civil War. And at least with the information that we're given, the only thing that makes sense to me that would cause a civil war would be this vote. So I guess I'm not sure which side I stand on necessarily, but if they voted to deem their neutrality and they end up getting annexed, so it's essentially a peaceful takeover, right? Instead of a violent, bloody one. Uh, I think the end result is ultimately the same.
Right.
It's going to piss the people off, and it's going to start riots and leads to the civil war. Or if they vote to, the opposite way and they stand up to it, and they gotta fight for their own. I don't think that causes the civil war. I think if the council, I don't feel like the council's necessarily got the best interests of the people at heart. So I that was the one thing I wanted to circle back to. I think that's what would probably cause the civil war.
Well, right, because as nobility, if they're taken over peacefully, right, like they're still going to have some type of political control, whereas the common people, not so much. They're just going to be subjugated to, the Malazan Empire.
Right.
Yeah, which okay, now I think things are starting to click, which would make sense why Baruch would oppose it naturally, because and why he would downplay it, his influence. He doesn't want neutrality.
Right. I was just gonna say that was my last thought.
Ah, it's a good thought. I didn't even, as you were saying things just finally started to click. So, oh right, my thought was, I think that Baruch, going back to like the confidence piece, he's, I think that he's confident that he would be able to take, or at least put up a good fight against the Malazan Empire, which is why he's considering Brake's offer, right? That makes sense? Because if he wasn't
Yeah.
confident that he could take them head on, why would he even be having this conversation? Why wouldn't he have just said no, like fuck you, we're fucked?
I'm not sure. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of
It's all good.
thought.
It's all good.
Yeah, if you're ready,
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to the last section here.
rip it up, buddy.
Cool. All right, last section of the chapter. We've got dawn approaching, and all of the tables inside the Phoenix Inn are sitting empty, except for one. Four dudes are sitting at this table, with one member passed out on the table, face sitting in stale beer and snoring loudly. This man's name is revealed as Cole, or Call. Three of them are playing cards, two of those players exhausted as hell, and the last kept talking and would not shut the fuck up. Our old friend Krupp. Still
Creep,
Krupp?
creep.
Kruppe? Still not, hey papa. Still not playing his hand of cards. He's talking about a story where he had used sorcery to save Rallick from 6 hoodlums who had stabbed and surrounded him, turning them to ash. Croup is in disbelief that there's an assassin war and continues to talk and to explains to Crocus that he saw Rallick this very night speaking to Murillo. Excuse me. Murillo and a member at this very table, Crocus Young Hand, also at this table. Oh, Murillo, a member at this very table. Crocus Young Hand, also at this table, asks Murillo what him and Rallick were talking about. Murillo just shrugs. Crocus recants what he saw to the people at the table. Murillo states that he believes Crocus, and then banter between Krupp and Murillo continues. Footsteps are then heard as Rallick is descending the stairs, and Rallick joins the table, noticing that they are still playing the same game from the night before, or from earlier that evening, I guess. Krupp gestures toward Crocus, and while exaggerating Crocus's tale of death on the rooftops, asks Rallick if he's ever heard of such nonsense. Rallick responds that he hasn't, and that they are just rumors, as always, because Darujistan was built on rumors. Murillo yells at Salty and asks Salty, and asks her to make breakfast for all of his friends. He then locks eyes with Rallick, nods, and then leaves and goes to take a bath. Crocus observes this interaction, and thoughts of conspiracy and thoughts of what took place between Rallick and Murillo earlier that night, or earlier that evening, kind of circle or whirled in his head. With breakfast being served, Krupp makes an asshole comment to Salty and then quickly recants it. The chapter ends with Krupp wanting to start off breakfast with some grapes. So Krupp's kind of, I don't know. I get the feeling that Krupp is like that annoying, obnoxious drunk friend. You know,
Yeah, I get that too.
like just shut
I
the
don't know. He's
fuck up, dude. You know.
he's kind of a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, he's a bit strange, but as much as he's obnoxious, for whatever reason, like I like the way that he is described as a character. But and then
He's interesting.
yeah, there's definitely more, and the fact that he's we know that he probably has a Warren of some kind, or he can make spells because in his story about saving Ralik's life, he burns them to ash. So I wonder if it's some type of like fire Warren or what. But I thought it was funny the whole snoring loudly with with Cole's face just sitting in some stale beer. It reminded
It
me.
sounds like me.
You snore loudly in stale beer.
I mean, only on occasion.
It just our neighbor pounds on the walls when we snore, which because she's a bitch. So as soon as I saw the snoring
Probably
loudly,
listening right now.
I don't care. She's not. We made sure that she can't do it again. So, but yeah, it just the snoring loudly. And if my neighbor was in this universe, she'd be pounding on the wall so hard at this. But we also, in this section, speaking of the man snoring loudly in a face full of stale beer, Cole, we get a little backstory here about Cole, and clearly sobriety isn't something that he is great at doing. But Crocus thinks that he, in the past, was something more. And that seems to be the only little tidbit of Cole that we get from this chapter.
The other thing I remember from this chapter, not related to Cole, was I'm pretty sure that Krupa has his perfect streak in the card game maintained, right?
Yes, because he's. I feel like he is just annoying his other players so much that they just give up, though. Like I don't.
Delay.
Right, I don't think that he's doing it like honorably. I think he's being a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to have any bearing on anything, but just I remembered it. It stuck out to me.
Yeah, I didn't want to put that in the summary because I didn't think it really did anything for the summary, but I'm glad that you brought that up because I totally forgot about it.
Just inconsequential detail, I guess.
Right. Also, have you noticed the theme with the whole shrugging?
No.
So
Fill me in.
I feel like a lot of reactions are just shrugs. I guess that would be my only type of feedback is that whenever a character doesn't want to reveal information, they just shrug. So I immediately
fuck it, whatever.
Yeah, I immediately go back to just all of the negativity around Nynaeve and her hair tugging. Granted, it's not with one character, but a varying array of them. But that's just what I go to. Is just that negative connotation of fans being annoyed of her hair tugging, which never bothered me. The shrugging doesn't bother me either, but that's just what I went to.
I gotcha. I follow you.
Cool. We also, I feel like we get a lot of backstory in this very short little segment here. But we learn that Crocus, his parents died when he was young, and that his uncle has been raising him. We also learn that Krupp, had taught Crocus thievery as he was Krupp's apprentice.
What a bad influence. Or a good one.
I mean, he did successfully steal a bunch of gold and jewelry from some nobility.
A sleeping child? Congratulations.
True. But, I mean, if Crocus is as young as he is, maybe we could just call it, being young and dumb.
Well, yeah, I guess. I won't take it away from him.
But we also learn that Rallick, Murillo, Cole, and Krupp are his best friends. And then he goes to describe them as a drunkard, which we know is Cole, an obese mage, which we know is Krupp, a dandified fop, which is
I don't know what the.
I don't even know what the fuck that is either, but that is referring to Murillo because, and then he goes a dandified fop and a killer, which we know is Rallick because that's his reputation. At least that's what has been revealed. So my question is what could a dandified fop and a killer conspire about? Like,
It's like Pinky in the Brain.
right. So my question is what is oh never mind. I guess dandified, according to the dictionary in Google here, is just showing excessive concern about one's clothes or appearance, typically used of a man.
It's like a metrosexual then.
Right. Okay. So I wonder what his thoughts on Topper would be, because he always wears the same fucking clothes.
He just wants to look good, man.
Yeah. Green clothes every time.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would what would a killer and a gentleman who is very concerned about his clothes, like what is it that possibly Crocus is observing here? Because we know that Rallick is an assassin. We don't know much about Murillo. I can assume that if they're all friends, that Krupp seems to be the only type of magical one, has probably taken them all under their wing. If Crocus is younger, we can probably assume that Rallick and Murillo are younger, and then Krupp is kind of like the ringleader. Is kind of where my head is going with this.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm getting on your train. I'm on board.
I mean, outside of that, that's just it was a pretty straightforward segment. It was just a lot of backstory, which I thought was cool. But
Yeah, well, to see if any of it, I guess, like pays off or anything, later on down the road.
yeah, any last thoughts from you?
I did like the chapter. I liked the setup, but we've had so much action in this book so far that it's almost weird to have I don't want to say a slower chapter, but just, where there wasn't fighting going on or, something like that. Um, I am looking forward to kind of getting back to that pace, but for being a quote slower chapter, it wasn't boring. There was definitely plenty to keep you intrigued and like, okay, well, what's going on and what's going to happen.
Right, and I mean, it's just the pace just slowed down a little bit. I always just associate it to like a roller coaster, right? Like you're kind of going through the transitional pieces that bring you
Yeah,
to that thrilling part of the coaster. But yeah, I agree with you.
there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs.
And there's just going to be some straight old straightaways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in agreement. I'm still so baffled that we're over 200 pages now. I know that we probably could have been done with the book by now, but um, I'm appreciative of the fact that we just kind of get to take it a chapter at a time, take it at a section at a time, diagnose, break it down, and then have some adult conversations around characters and some of their interactions and their idiocies. And
Yeah, I have not, definitely haven't gotten tired of doing this yet. So, I better not, because like I said, we got 9 and 3/4 books to go. So we're in this for the long haul. I'm in this for the long haul. I think you are too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It. Hopefully, we can get some more. Hopefully, we can bring some guests on. I think that would be cool. As far as just hopefully looking into the future, getting some guests on and having some spoiler free interactions with people who are as far as we are, or maybe just starting the book, and just kind of like maybe a Q&A episode. I mean, the possibilities are boundless. We could do an episode on pretty much anything.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm having fun. I like this book so far, and I'm excited to read on.
I'm digging this book too, and I've been keeping an eye on the Twitter stuff and other people reading this. Not necessarily this book, but the series, and I haven't run into any spoilers or anything. But from what I've seen, people like this book, but they seem to love the next one. So I'm almost impatient to get through this one and get into Dead House Gates and see what that's all about.
I couldn't agree more. I feel that sense of impatience as well.
But we will get there.
Slowly but surely, which is the best part, because like I mentioned at the beginning, I haven't really seen too many podcasts where it's kind of a surprise, right? Like, we have no idea what's happening. We don't know. We're probably wrong on everything that we talk about. So, or speculate on, I should say.
But that's okay. We'll find out, and then we'll talk about it later.
Exactly. We'll kind of swing back around, and I would imagine that when we're done with this book, we'll just have an episode where we talk about what we read, and again, just kind of conclude.
Yeah.
Speaking of conclusions, what do you say we wrap this up?
We can wrap this bitch up right now.
Cool. You wanna tell us where they can interact with us?
So right now, you can interact with us on Twitter. You can find us at D&J Epic Q. We are one follower away from 50. We were at 49. I think when we started this episode, we were at 48. So we've gained one along the way here.
Woohoo!
So it's pretty cool. You can also find us on Facebook, Derek and Justin's Epic Quest. Search for us. Admittedly, we are probably a lot less active on that. And then also on Instagram. I don't remember what your tag or handle is for that.
It's just D&J Epic Q, I think.
So if you search that, you'll probably find us on one of the three. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And I know we keep talking about Google. It's something we are looking at and just kind of need to commit to and do.
Yeah, I gotta take a little bit of a deeper look into that and what is all required. And hopefully maybe it's just as simple as linking it to the other podcasts, and then when we publish one, it publishes there too. But I'll have to delve into that a little bit more. So hopefully in the next couple
but you
episodes.
got a few places you can find us.
Right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Derek, you have yourself a great night.
You too, man. Talk to you soon.
Later.